from what I can tell, as an outside observer here, but from what I can tell, it appears to me that it's clear that everyone who's joined the administration knows exactly what their portfolio will be. They know exactly what they will be doing once they join the administration. I think it's clear what everyone's lanes will be. I think a lot of credit goes to people like Susie Wiles, for example, who've been running a very disciplined operation here with respect to this transition. So I think to answer your question, my gut tells me, yes, this will be a different go around here. I think you're going to see a lot more people who are going to be with the administration here, probably longer, frankly. And part of that is that this is a one term here. This is not going to be a situation where President Trump, once he's sworn in, is running for a second term. They got 4 years here to govern. And really, it's, they seem like a lot of time. 4 years really isn't. And I think President-elect Trump recognizes that time is his most valuable asset, and having the right people in place to help him streamline, to help him govern. That's going to be key here. So I suspect you're going to see this team here with him, but you might see some people leave in between. That's not uncommon, particularly around the 2-year mark of administrations or so, give or take, for people to leave administrations. We'll see what happens here.
Really interesting to talk to you. Matt Terrell, former Chief of Staff for Marco Rubio's presidential campaign. Thanks very much. Let's just return to our correspondent, Mark Stone, who's standing by in Washington for us. And Mark, it's an interesting thing to muse on, isn't it? How very different this administration could be the second time round for President Trump. What may he do differently?
Well, I think the most important point to make is that he has learnt a lot from his first presidency. He's learnt about who he should hire, and he has learnt that he should hire the most loyal people, because let's remember the last presidency was a bit of a merry-go-round of people coming in and then being fired in pretty short order as he discovered that they were not loyal to him. So this time he's learnt from that, and he is choosing people who he believes will be loyal to him, and we'll see how that goes. As you were discussing, Marco Rubio was someone who he didn't have very many nice words to say about once upon a time, but they became closer. Marco Rubio is also more of a traditional Republican, so does he think that he can mold his own views within the State Department? Will we see a falling out of between Trump and Marco Rubio, or has Marco Rubio tacked wholly into the Trumpian orbit and therefore something quite different? Looking at those images of President Trump descending the steps back into Washington, it does, the sense I get is that from his point of view, it is one heck of a neat 2 fingers to the establishment. I'm back, is what he's saying. I'm back in your town. I have been elected, not just, but elected with a landslide, and I probably control both houses of Congress as well. So that is the vibe that he will carry with him, and his vice president to be there, J.D. Vance, the second youngest vice president in U.S. history. Those 2 men carry with them now a huge amount of power, and they will carry that power into the White House itself for the beginning of a transition period that Donald Trump did not afford 4 years ago to Joe Biden, because, of course, Donald Trump back then never admitted that he had lost the last election. I wonder too, Jane, whether or not Donald Trump will actually keep Joe Biden waiting, because he is due to be at the White House in about 40 minutes time, but he's got to come here to the Hyatt Hotel first to meet the people he really wants to meet, which is his own party, the Republican Party, and from there he will go to the White House maybe a little later than planned, due to be there for around about a couple of hours. The moment that we will get to see is in the Oval Office a little later on this morning.
Mark, thanks very much for that. We will return to Mark a little bit later. But stay with Sky News, because coming up next, I'm going to be joined by the winner of the Booker Prize, the British author Samantha Harvey.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place, and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We'd been warned that we would meet people in the lowest moment of their lives.
Their story is one of fundamental American failure. Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club, but I have to say there are more media here than there are supporters. We love Trump! I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. This is just the audience that Joe Biden wanted.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important, it's at the heart of the issue.
For all the talk of a toned-down, humbled Trump, yes, maybe there was just a little less rhetoric, a little less divisiveness, but in the end it was the same rhythm, the same speech, the same man.
All them people that died in Russia and Ukraine, they'd still be alive today if Donald Trump was the president.
If it was my wish, have a businessman that's strong like Trump, but maybe just doesn't say as much, you know?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What we've been allowed to see over here is a humanitarian corridor. Free wherever you get your news.
A young American medical student is making remarkable things happen.
I've seen a lot of difficult things, and honestly, it breaks my heart. These children don't deserve that.
I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And so they gathered for this wonder of nature.
I'm very excited right now.
This is an extraordinary moment beyond anything I could have expected. Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. The British author Samantha Harvey has won the Booker Prize with her novel Orbital, the first winning book set in space to win the prize. It was the biggest selling book on this year's shortlist, and it's about astronauts looking down at Earth from the International Space Station. I'm pleased to say, or thrilled to say, that Samantha joins me now. Really good to talk to you today. Congratulations. How are you feeling?
Totally overwhelmed. Exhausted, completely exhilarated and delighted.
It must have been quite the evening. What inspired you to write this book? We've given our viewers a sort of a sense of what it's about, but you describe it in your own words.
Well, it's a 24-hour period of 16 Earth orbits on a space station, which is essentially the ISS, 4 astronauts, 2 cosmonauts. And the book is really just describing that one day in space and their view of the Earth, their view of the rest of the cosmos, and some of the astronauts' own inner lives.
Why? What was the spark that ignited this in your head and made you think this could be an amazing tale?
I think that it was really, I was inspired by images of the Earth from space. So this was primarily for me a book about the Earth more than it is about space. I wanted to write about both the sort of extraordinary, miraculous beauty of the Earth, but also try to find a new vantage point on it, one where I could sort of depict it visually, almost as a painting. And I wanted to try to put into words what I felt when I look at images of the Earth from space. So I decided to try to, write from a new vantage point and to try to write what I think of as space realism, I guess, rather than sci-fi.
And researching a book like this, I mean, you've not been up in space. The astronaut Tim Peake, he was interested to know how you researched it. What did you do?
I read his book. I read books by many astronauts. I spent a long time on the NASA and ESA, the European Space Agency websites. I looked at thousands of hours of footage of the Earth from space, video footage, photographs, everything I could find. I mean, there's so much information out there about space. It's quite easy to research. The difficulty is where you stop researching and start writing, and how you adapt some of that material and turn it into prose and turn it into a creative fiction project.
And how long did that all take?
I think it took sort of 2.5 years thereabouts. I started it before lockdown, and I wrote the bulk of it during lockdown.
Would you like to go up into space? Is this now there in your mind? You've imagined it so, and your words have helped a lot of us imagine what it would be like to be there. But would you like to physically do it?
I think I'm too cowardly, to be honest. Some days I think, yeah, I would do that. I'd love it. I'd like to go for a short time, maybe a day trip, just to see the Earth, just to get beyond the atmosphere and be able to look down, see the atmosphere of the Earth. And I would like to, but I think essentially when it comes to it, I'm too earthbound. I'm too cowardly.
Cowardly or sane, that could be the other word to describe you. It was a unanimous winner. It doesn't always happen that the judges decide unanimously. That must have been especially gratifying.
It's unbelievable. I feel still today it's completely surreal, and I could never have dreamed of it happening.
It's also been a bestseller, and of course that doesn't often happen. Not often some people regard the Booker winner as being a little highbrow or perhaps not necessarily that popular, but you've managed to achieve both, which is a rare thing. Did you think when you were writing it, did you just know that this was going to be enormously successful?
I had no idea. I mean, I think it's quite rare that writers have that feeling when we're writing. I mean, you always try to write something that is the best thing you could possibly do, and you always aim to be proud of what you've written. And I did multiple edits of this book, more than for any other book. I just kept coming back to it and grappling it from my editor and saying, I just need to make a few more changes. And I was quite obsessive about it, but I didn't have any sense that this would happen.
Well, the obsession paid off. Samantha Harvey, winner of the Booker Prize 2024. You're going to have to get used to people saying that. Lovely to meet you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Now, as we were saying a little earlier, Donald Trump has touched down in Maryland. He's going to be heading to Washington, where he will meet House Republicans and eventually President Biden in the White House. This was the president-to-be arriving at Joint Base Andrews. We're hearing from our partners at NBC that apparently Elon Musk, who has got a new role in the president's team in terms of trying to improve efficiency, is going to be joining the president-elect in Washington. Musk has spent the last week in Palm Beach with Trump and has, of course, as I've been saying, been given that new role in Trump's cabinet as head of efficiency. We will bring you all the latest from the US and the rest of the day's news at the top of the hour. These are the scenes inside this building, this hotel in Washington, where President Trump is going to meet key leading Republicans before he goes on to the White House to spend some time with Joe Biden ahead of taking over the reins officially in January. Hello, you're watching Sky News Today with me, Jane Secker. It's 3 o'clock. These are the headlines. On his way back to the White House, Donald Trump is in Washington to speak to Joe Biden about the transition of power. It's the first time the pair will meet face to face since Trump's big win last week. We'll bring you that moment as it happens. Also ahead, the father of Sara Sharif tells the Old Bailey he takes full responsibility for the death of his 10-year-old daughter. A treatment plan for the NHS. The Health Secretary confirms failing hospitals will be named and shamed in a bid to improve patient care.
Our collective challenge is to take the NHS from the worst crisis in its history, put it back on its feet, and make it fit for the future.
And Timothy West remembered. Tributes to the actor who has died at the age of 90. Hello, good afternoon. In around an hour's time, Donald Trump is expected to come face to face with Joe Biden for the first time since winning the US election. It'll be a bitter pill to swallow for the outgoing president, who will host Mr. Trump at the White House to discuss the transition of power. Well, this was the president-elect leaving Florida earlier this afternoon in true Trump style aboard Trump Force One. And in the last hour, that plane landed at Joint Base Andrews, just outside Washington. Well, the president-elect disembarked the plane and got straight into his motorcade. He's now en route to the White House. We understand that soon-to-be cabinet member Elon Musk travelled with Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance has arrived at Capitol Hill to meet senior Senate Republicans. Mr. Trump will soon be on his way to the White House after meeting these representatives in Washington at a nearby hotel. Well, our US correspondent Mark Stone is standing by in Washington. And Mark, this first meeting that President Trump was due to attend was actually meant to happen 2 p.m. UK time before he went on to meet the president at 4. So he does appear to be running considerably behind schedule.
Yeah, and I don't know why that is, but it may be pure Trumpian form to decide to keep the current president waiting in his own house for a meeting that will take place. Donald Trump is due to be at the White House in 20 minutes' time, but he hasn't even arrived yet at the Hyatt Hotel here on Capitol Hill, where he is due to have a meeting that I think we're expecting to last at least 40 minutes with lawmakers, Republican lawmakers here, a meeting where they will congratulate each other on an extraordinary nationwide sweep over the course, last week in the election. So that meeting will take place, and then he will head from here down Pennsylvania Avenue, a journey that'll take, 5 minutes or so, to the White House for a meeting with President Biden that we expect to last an hour and a half, of which we will only see one small segment. They will be in the Oval Office for that traditional moment where an outgoing president begins the period of transition with an incoming president. A normal moment of transition in years gone past, but anything but this year, given the animosity between President Biden and President Trump. Remember, too, that Biden is offering Trump what he did not offer Biden 4 years ago. There was no formal transition of power 4 years ago when Trump lost to Biden, because Trump never admitted defeat. And so the last time what we will see today happened was back in 2016, when it was President Trump who arrived as a novice into Washington after that shock election victory against Hillary Clinton. And he met outgoing President Barack Obama for what was a very civil meeting. We'll see what the body language is like this time. But I think gleeful is the word that might describe Donald Trump. Who knows what President Biden will be thinking over the course of the next hour or two. We also don't know who else will be at this meeting, who will greet Donald Trump as he pulls up on the north side of the White House. and walks in. Our colleagues at NBC have asked which officials from the White House will greet Donald Trump. Will it be President Biden himself? We haven't got any answer on that. What we do know, Jane, fascinating as it is that also on Trump Force Wayne plane, in fact, he is here inside the hotel now. So let's listen into these pictures.
There ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee.
Well, thank you very much. This is a very nice gathering. Isn't it nice to win? It's nice to win. It's always nice to win. A lot of good friends in this room. So you know we had like historic kind of numbers, especially for the president, but we won't get into that. But the House did very well, and I think we're responsible for 31, helping you with 31, meaning we could have lost by quite a bit. And we ended up, I guess you'll be 5 up. Are you looking at 5 or 4? 5 or 4, right? Doesn't matter. We get used to 1 for a little while. When you can get used to 1, you can get used to anything. So I just want to thank everybody. You've been incredible. We worked with a lot of you to get you in. And you helped me, and you helped me too. And my numbers were, so they say, the 129 years, the most important election in 129 years. That's pretty good. I said, who is the 129 years? What was that, Doc Ronnie? Who's 129 years ago? I'd never looked because it started at being 100, and then they upped it to that, but it's a great compliment. We won the majority by 7.1 million. We won, which is great, because Republicans aren't supposed to be winning the majority, Marjorie. You know that, right? And we won that, and we won it every way, all 7 swing states by a lot. And then Michigan was great, couldn't be better, I'll tell you. Michigan was great, and we had a couple of people, almost New Jersey is right, just a few points. It's got them very worried because they say, well, next time if we go up even a fraction of what we went up, you're going to win New York, you're going to win New Jersey, you're going to win places that weren't winnable. California, too. I think without one speech, without campaigning at all in California, if you think we lost by 9 points. I mean, 9 points in California, and it's very doable. It would be really doable if they changed the election process, if they.
Well, I'm really sorry about that. I'm not sure if the cameramen have been enjoying the hospitality, or perhaps they don't know that we are taking their footage live. So I'm sorry about that. But the president there speaking to senior Republicans in that hotel ahead of his meeting with Joe Biden, scheduled for just under an hour's time. We shall see if he makes it there in time. Let's just return to Mark Stone. Mark, you know, he is victorious. He won this election by a resounding majority. This is a very sweet day for President-elect Trump, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what was happening with that cameraman. Always happens when you have to rely on other people's feeds, as we were then. The speech is ongoing now, and it is, I think the tone is precisely as we imagined it would be. Victorious, a man who is delighted not only with his presidential win, but of course the wins by senators and Congress people right across the country, which certainly mean that the upper house of Capitol Hill is controlled by the Republicans, and maybe the lower House as well. So a resounding Republican Trumpian victory. That is why he has come here first to Capitol Hill, to this hotel where the great and the good of the Republican Party have gathered to hear his speech. And you heard the anthem that has become the anthem of the Trumpian Republican Party, God Bless the USA, by Lee Greenwood at every single one of his rallies. That is the tune that is on a loop, and so it was here this morning. But he's going to keep the president waiting. I think that's fascinating. He was due to be at the White House, what time is it? In about 10 minutes' time. That is not going to happen. He's going to be late for that meeting with President Biden. He's going to keep the current occupant of the White House waiting, which is, well, quite something, but on form, I would say, for the president-elect. And then we will get the moment we're all waiting for, the body language. What will that be like as these two men meet, as President Biden affords President Trump what he did not afford Biden 4 years ago, and that is an orderly transition of power, the beginning of the transition process that will last from now until the 15th of January, Inauguration Day, when Donald Trump will formally become the US president, the 47th president of the United States.
Mark, thank you very much. Well, just a reminder, at around 4 o'clock UK time, although we are slightly beholden to Trump, you can see that live meeting with President Trump-to-be and the current President Joe Biden together at the White House. You can watch it right here on Sky News. Next, the father of Sara Sharif has told jurors he takes full responsibility for the death of his daughter. The 10-year-old was found dead at her home in Woking in August last year. Sara Sharif made the admission under cross-examination at the Old Bailey. Well, Sky's Saba Chowdhury has been following the story. Saba, just talk us through what happened in court today.
Good afternoon, Jane. Well, it was a dramatic admission that we heard from Sara Sharif's father, 42-year-old Sara Sharif, at the Old Bailey. Under cross-examination, he told a jury he takes full responsibility for the death.
I said yes. And at the time, I called community colleges America's best-kept secret. And I knew that they deserved to be seen and celebrated and championed at every level of government. And Joe knows this too. So when he became president, Joe put community colleges front and center in his workforce strategy. And from day one as First Lady, I knew that community colleges would be a priority for me. So part of that means pushing to make them tuition-free. And so I've been so proud to work alongside dedicated leaders like my friend Martha Cantor, Walter Bumpus, and Jihang Lee, who have been dedicated partners in this work. So today, less than a decade after we launched the effort to make community colleges free, 34 states plus Washington, D.C. and counting offer tuition-free community college and job training programs. We came close to making community college free for everyone across the country, but a few senators, I'm not going to name them, blocked our way. But that wasn't the end. This movement continues to gain momentum. We must keep fighting for free community college. As First Lady, I've also focused on strengthening the pathways between classrooms and careers. Nearly, and you probably all know this, but nearly 60% of graduating high school students don't go directly to a 4-year degree. We know that. 6 out of every 10 students. Some will start working. Some will go to community college or technical colleges. Some won't even know what they want to do next. So we continue to keep transforming education to bridge the gap between what students learn and the careers that they can enter. We've had amazing partners in high schools across the country and in advocates like Becky Pringle and Randy Weingarten. Together, we're making sure that high school graduation isn't a sudden halt in a student's education, but rather like this seamless step forward, whether that's on a college campus, a registered apprenticeship, or another career opportunity. And we've partnered with the leaders of unions and businesses and school districts, colleges, and universities and to match what local employers and the workers that they need. And that's what we've been able to do with our Investing in America workforce hubs. And it's a model that communities across the country can replicate. Community colleges are no longer America's best kept secret. Thanks to the progress of Joe's administration and what they've created, we're on our way to making them America's best kept promise. Thank you. But there's more ground to cover, and it will take all of us to get there. If we work together, we can build a future where more high school students will graduate with credits and skills that they can apply to their future careers, where community college is free for every student in every state of America, and where all students have a clear pathway to jobs that pay well right in the communities where they grew up. This semester is coming to a close. My students are starting to write their last assignments, and they're signing up for new classes, or some are going to graduate. Joe and I are also preparing for what's coming next. It has been the honor of our lives to serve in the White House and to work alongside really all of you in this room. So as you keep pushing forward to make our country shine with opportunity, know that you will always have a partner in us. And now I'd like to introduce a longtime champion of our nation's students. Not only has Joe always supported my career as an educator, but as president, he wakes up every day with a mission to lift up all Americans through the endless possibility of education. Please welcome your president, my husband and hero, Joe Biden.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank all of you, please. I'm Joe Biden. I'm Joe Biden's husband. And you can see she doesn't have any strong notions or ideas. You know, teaching is not what Jill does. It's who she is. And I mean that, like many of you teachers. It's just built in her DNA. She was surprised when we got elected vice president. And she said she wanted to keep teaching. I said, of course. She looked at me like, really, you're going to do that? And we did it. But the point is that this is a passion. It's a passion for Jill. And the way I look at it is a simple proposition. How can we be the greatest nation in the world and not have the best education system in the world? I mean it. Think about it. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm honored to host this White House classroom of Career Summit. Look, 15 years ago, when Jill hosted the first one during our vice presidency, to state the obvious, as I said, what Jill for Jill, being an educator is just what she is, period. And I believe the work she's done to connect students in good paying jobs will prove one of the most important efforts of our presidency, and I mean it. Look, that's why we're all here today. And I want to thank Congressman Norcross in New Jersey. I keep reminding my Jersey guys, we do really well in Jersey. Jill's a Jersey girl, born and raised. And I tell them, though, there was actually a case a long time ago. Delaware is the second smallest state in the nation, but we own the Delaware River up to the high water mark in New Jersey. A Supreme Court decision, for real. So I just want you to know, that's why we're so close. Just step off. Anyway. You're a good man, pal. You really are. And the members of my cabinet are here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And leaders of business, education, unions, philanthropy, nonprofits, and more, you know, for being here and for your leadership. And I mean it sincerely. You know, when we came to office, the pandemic was raging, the economy was reeling. And from day one, I was determined not only to vaccinate the nation, deliver immediate economic relief for the folks who need it the most, but I also determined to transform the way our economy works for everyone. To write a new economic playbook, and I mean this sincerely, a new economic playbook, build the economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not from the top down. My dad used to have an expression. He said, you know, Joey, when you talk about trickle-down economics, not a whole hell of a lot trickles down on our kitchen table. Well, when we do that, the poor have a ladder up, and the middle class do well, and the wealthy still be able to do very well. And we all do well. It's a playbook based on a value set that my dad taught me. He used to say, and I mean it sincerely, Joey, your job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it, and mean it. It matters. And not everyone has felt the progress because it takes time. We've emerged from a crisis. We have the strongest economy in the world, much more to do. Working families and the middle class are the center of a strong, equitable, and sustainable recovery. And the big reason why is that I call the Investing in American agenda. You know, it's a page from our economic playbook that invests in all of America and all Americans, creating pathways for millions of good-paying jobs being created in our economy. You know, the key pieces of the Investing in America include historic laws that I've signed. The historic investments in modernizing our roads and bridges, our ports, airports, public transit. We're replacing poisonous lead pipes. We're delivering clean water to every American. It's take time. But it's the beginning. It's real. It's there. We're delivering affordable high-speed internet and so much more. Roosevelt talked about the need to electrify America during that history. Well, how can you have access to being able to participate in everything? In fact, you don't have access to affordable internet. You don't have access to, anyway, don't get me going. But look, we're also making sure that the supply chain, I don't think Americans heard much about supply chain before we came to office. But the supply chain starts in America. We can no longer, for the longest time, corporate America decided to export the jobs because they're cheaper labor and import the product. Well, not us. We've changed that dynamic. For example, semiconductors, those little computer chips small on the tip of my little finger. You know, they power everything from our smartphones to automobiles to weapon systems. America invented those chips. We in the United States invented them. We modernized them. We did all the work on it. But we stopped making them. We used to have over 40% of the market, and we got down to virtually none of it. But not anymore. Today, we're making once-in-a-generation investments in American science and innovation that are building chip factories all across America. And they're going to be creating tens of thousands of good-paying jobs. And that's not hyperbole, but it takes time to build them. The one thing I was all excited about how much we've invested, how much is coming. But it's taking time. You have to build those so-called fabs. These quote fabs, these factories that build these things, are as big as football fields. And guess what? They pay about an average of $105,000 a year. You don't need a college degree to get there. And that doesn't even count the tens of billions of dollars being spent to build these facilities and attract other businesses. And I signed the most significant climate law ever in American history, but in history of the world. The Congress will tell you we were told we couldn't get it done, but we got it done. We got it done. And it's leading us into a clean energy future with even more good-paying clean energy jobs than American workers. As a result of these laws and other things we've done, I won't take all your time, but the key actions, the end result is we've created, in the almost 4 years we've been here, we've created 16 million new jobs, brand new jobs, since I took office. The most in any single U.S. presidential term. Inflation is at 2.6%, close to the pre-pandemic rate. Unemployment is down to 4.1%, longest stretch for a long, long time that low. Despite the critics saying we had to lower our ambitions to get the economy going, we've attracted off the sidelines from private enterprise over $1 trillion, $1 trillion in private investment in clean energy and manufacturing that are creating good-paying jobs and building factories here in America where they belong. And all this historic investment is happening in every part of the country. You remember my call saying I'm a president for all Americans, no matter who they voted for. Well, keeping that commitment, the majority of the investments are actually in red states, not blue states, because they got hurt the most by the policies early on. All those factories shutting down. How many times did you come from places where you had Mom and my grandpapa and grandmom worked in that factory. My mom and dad worked there. Well, I got to move, Mom, because there's no job. The factory's gone. I got hurt very badly. It takes away the soul of community. We're making sure these Americans have access to good-paying jobs that are being created. Buy America has been the law of the land since the 30s, which hardly anybody knew, hardly anybody paid attention to. When Franklin Roosevelt was trying to make it fair for unions to be able to organize so that businesses couldn't just crush them because they started, there was a provision in the law in the early 30s that said, when a president is authorized by Congress to spend money on a project, he has to do two things. He has to use that money to hire American workers, and he has to use American products. Well, this administration, past administrations failed to do that. Like I said, so much was exported overseas. Well, not on my watch. My administration buys American. We're making sure the federal projects we're building, roads, bridges, highways, and more are going to be made with American products, built by American workers, and creating good-paying American jobs. Jobs that don't require a four-year college degree. Jobs you can raise a family on. In fact, my administration is requiring many of these kinds of projects to pay what a union wage called the Davis-Bacon prevailing wage. We're expanding registered apprenticeships, resulting in hiring of more than 1 million apprentices since we've come to office. Remember, business came along and said, we'll do the apprenticeships. Yeah, right. Well, guess what? They're not. A lot of folks don't realize that an apprenticeship is like earning a college degree. You spend up to 4 or 5 years training, while you get paid while you're doing it, to learn the trade, to lead to a good paying job, like going to school before you can be registered in that particular expertise. They're among the best workers in the world. Today, I'm proud to announce that for the first time ever, the number of women in apprenticeships has reached 100,000. 3 times the number from a decade ago. When I took office, not a single state had a registered apprenticeship program for teachers. Today, 46 states plus Puerto Rico and D.C. have launched registered apprenticeship programs for teachers. Some will say I did that because I feared for my life, but not true. I wanted to do it anyway. I'm also proud to announce that we've committed more than $80 billion towards strengthening and expanding our workforce. As Jill just described, that includes supporting free community college programs so students and workers can train for good jobs without the burden of student debt. It also describes what we launched, the workforce hubs, where we collaborate with local leaders, community colleges, unions, local businesses to train and connect Americans to good-paying jobs. And it's good for students and workers. It grows the economy for everyone. I know I'm listed as the most pro-union president in American history. I'm very proud of that. But guess what? Guess what, folks? Businesses now acknowledging that it helps them too. I had Treasury Department do a study. What's the effect of focusing on unions? Everybody's standard of living is raised. Everybody's. We've also really proud to have launched the American Climate Corps, patterned after the Peace Corps and the American Corps, to put tens of thousands of young people on a path to good-paying, clean energy, apprenticeships, and jobs. That's the future. And with the support of the private sector, we're also bringing business into the high schools so younger students can learn about and train for good-paying jobs, including those that don't require four-year degrees, as Jill pointed out. There's so much more that you'll learn about at today's summit, and many of you bring more information as well. But look, it really matters. Let me close with this. You heard Jill speak about incredible students. Well, joining us today is another American worker who embodies an incredible character that we see all over the country. Maurice Bogart. Maurice, I'm going to ask you to come up here in a second. Father of two young children, one of whom I work for. He's going to actually come up. Look, Maurice from Cleveland, Ohio. On the day his children were born, he had a survival mindset to do whatever he could to improve the positive circumstances for his family. 12 to 16-hour days and multiple jobs, even working out of town for months at a time, just to get by. Just it meant fewer hours with his children as well and his family. Last year, his sister, who was also with him today, sis, stand up. Every man like me needs a strong sister, and I have one. Thank God. We sent him to a link to about a pre-apprenticeship program where you learn a trade, funded by the American Rescue Plan that I signed into law as soon as I came to office. Well, Maurice signed up, and within hours he had an appointment. He soon started a 4-week training program to connect him with his local IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Today, he's on his way to becoming a journeyman electrician, working at the stadium of his hometown baseball team, the Cleveland Guardians. Yes, sir. Good paying job with good hours, good benefits, and a lifelong career. And a sense of dignity and pride to be the father he always wanted to be.
Yes, sir.
And it's not just him. Millions of workers and families have more opportunity today than they did 4 years ago in an economy that is growing from the middle out and the bottom up. He can put him down. He can do whatever he wants. All you got to do, look, you can do anything you want, pal. Okay? And if you want to make a speech later, you can, all right? All right. Economy where everybody has a fair shot. We leave nobody behind. Invest in America and all Americans. That's what we've done together by reminding ourselves who we are. For Lord's sake, we're the United States of America. There's nothing. I mean this in front of my heart. There's nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. And there's no group I'd rather be doing it with than all of you. So God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Distinguished guests, please remain in your seats as the President and First Lady depart, and as we transition the stage for today's panel.
Come to show the Department of Education.
Congressman Cole, do you want to talk to the whole panel? Can you just talk to us a little bit about what Trump talked about in the meeting?
You know, it was mostly kind of a replay of Donald Trump's greatest hits. There was a lot of discussion about the election. Obviously, it's a time when you take a victory lap. He called out a lot of people to congratulate. He introduced, of course, Susie Wiles and Elon Musk. And, of course, you can imagine Elise Stefanik got a huge deal. So it was much more that. We didn't really talk substantive policy. He did urge us to stick together as a caucus, to hang together. To made it very apparent how supportive he was of Speaker Johnson. So, and frankly, our whole leadership team singled out Scalise and Emmer. So, you know, I think it was more just a reminder to the troops to hang together, get things done. He intends to move pretty fast and, you know, strap it up and get ready.
Did Trump say anything about government funding?
No, he didn't. He really didn't get into policy issues at all. I thought he might, but he didn't.
Did he say anything about Elon Musk and the Ramaswamy?
Yeah, he did. He did talk about them in terms of he thought they would be terrific in this government efficiency and funding reform, but there wasn't any specific agenda associated with that, just a recognition that he'd made that name. He thought he had great people there.
And did he talk anything about foreign policy, the war?
Really did not. You know, again, I think this was much more a unity speech, a congratulatory speech. Singled out, again, quite a few of the members that he had worked to try and help, which he did. We wouldn't be in the majority without him. So it was much more, I think, unified, respect. I'm going to be around a lot. I'm going to come see you guys a lot, but we didn't get into much policy.
And what do you think he meant by his remarks suggesting this is his last chance or this is his last run?
I think he's just having a little fun. You know, look, this Constitution is pretty clear here. This is the last run unless there was a constitutional change. That takes 3/4 of the states and 2/3 of Congress to move it through to submit to the states. So not likely to happen, but you know, I'm old enough to remember Ronald Reagan teasing a little bit about that. So it's not unusual, particularly now right after a big win.
And then the last question, looking ahead to the leadership elections this afternoon, now that Trump has sort of, would you say he endorsed Speaker Johnson? Do you think
I feel like he has all the way along. He's made it apparent throughout the campaign how much he thinks of the Speaker, how supportive. They have worked together, they have traveled together. I think he sees him as probably more.
So many media here in one place for a moment that will be certainly something to watch out for. The body language, you're looking there at the west wing of the White House. That is where the Oval Office is, the other side of this building here. And as we swing round, you can see the White House itself and all the gathered media who are here to see this moment. Donald Trump is running late. He was due to be here at 10:20. That's about 50 minutes or so ago. Maybe on form, he is deciding to keep the current resident of this building waiting for the meeting, for the transitional moment that will mark the beginning of this transition process, culminating on January the 20th with the inauguration of the 47th president of the United States. The Oval Office meeting itself, that bit that we get to glimpse at where some cameras are allowed in, that was due to take place at 11 o'clock in 4 minutes. That's not going to happen. It's going to be a little late. But, you know, as we've been discussing all morning, Jane, what will the body language be? I was looking back at the last time this happened. It wasn't 2020 because Donald Trump did not afford a transitional process to the then incoming president, Joe Biden, because, of course, Trump claimed that he had never lost the election. So there was no transition in 2020. You've got to go back to 2016 for the last time that this moment that we will see in the next hour or so last happened. That was when a novice called Donald Trump had won the presidency, beaten Hillary Hillary Clinton. The outgoing president then was Barack Obama, and it was he who invited Donald Trump into the Oval Office for a meeting that was cordial. Looking at those pictures, it was clear to me that Donald Trump looked like a novice back then. He isn't this time. He's more organized. He knows how he can make Washington and Washington politics work to his advantage, and that, I think, is what we will see happen as his transitional White House takes shape.
And Mark, we've just seen President Trump-elect leaving this hotel on his way to you. It's only about a 5-minute drive, isn't it? So, you know, he could be there by 4, but he's obviously got to go through security, etc.
Well, I don't think he'll have to go through much security. It's straight down Pennsylvania Avenue from Capitol Hill to here, to the White House. It won't take him very long at all, but I don't think he's going to be here by the top of the hour. We're not quite sure either which entrance he's going to come into. If we spin round there, just through the railings there, you can make out the north lawn of the White House. That is where guests often arrive, although there doesn't appear to be a great deal of security there, so maybe he's not going to come there. But as we spin round here, you can see that that's the press room, that single-story building there. That's the press room of the White House, and then moving around further, the West Wing here. And it may be that his car pulls up just to the right of your shot, down the steps there, and then he heads into the West Wing directly for private meetings with President Biden, first of all, and then a public appearance in the Oval Office after that. But as I said, I mean, this place is usually relatively quiet, restricted only to those who have hard passes for the White House. Today, altogether different, as so many people, so many media from around the world have come to capture this moment.
And Mark, we've had announcements today from President Trump about his new top team, the people that he is choosing to surround himself with for the next 4 years, and they're a hawkish bunch.
Yeah, a really interesting group of people. Yesterday afternoon, it looked quite conventional, the announcement that Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida, is probably to be the U.S. Secretary of State, effectively the foreign minister of the United States. He's a relatively traditional Republican, but then through the course of the evening, things changed, and it became clear that there were going to be some relatively unconventional characters in his White House. The nominee for Department of Defense, the head of the Department of Defense, the Defense Secretary, is Pete Hegseth, who is a Fox and Friends host, a weekend host on Fox News. An interesting choice, certainly. I think eyebrows hit the roof among the establishment of Washington and generals and admirals over the river in the Pentagon, that maybe their new boss is a retired National Guard major who has spent much of the past decade on Fox News. If we spin round, actually, you can see there is now a Marine on the door of the West Wing. That signifies that President Biden is in the West Wing. You can always tell when he's there because tradition has it that a Marine stands guard outside the door of the West Wing. So President Biden now in the West Wing. That suggests to me that Donald Trump will arrive straight into the West Wing of the White House rather than going through the front entrance on the North Lawn. But we will bring you all these moments as they come. I should say, too, that President Biden appears to be wanting to cement his legacy because as the incoming president arrives and sets his agenda, sets his cabinet, the outgoing president has been tweeting his achievements, record employment rates, record number of women that he has got into senior positions within government, an attempt there by the outgoing president to cement his legacy as he welcomes his nemesis, the incoming 47th president here to the White House in the minutes ahead.
And Mark, one can only imagine what President Biden is feeling today. You know, the last time these men met was at that television debate. It didn't end well for Joe Biden. Throughout the campaign, he was dubbed Sleepy Joe by President Trump until he was no longer an issue for Trump because he was replaced by Kamala Harris. What do you think will be going through Biden's mind today?
I have no idea. Some of the US networks have been reporting that sources within the White House have said that he has appeared quite subdued over the course of the past few days, focusing particularly on on what he needs and wants to do over these last 60, 70 days between now and Inauguration Day on the 20th of January, I think it's clear that he wants to push through as much of the rest of his agenda as he can. He wants to cement his legacy, and to that end, as I said, 3 tweets in the last 15 minutes or so. The President of the United States tweeting, investing in America, that's what we have done together by reminding ourselves who we are. We are the United States of America. See, he said, today I'm proud to announce the number of women in apprenticeships is 3 times higher in the last decade. And he said we've committed more than $80 billion to strengthening our workforce, including supporting community college programs and so on. So a black and white attempt to cement his legacy, to remind the American public what he has done over the course of the past 4 years. But of course, you know, just listening to what he has said over the campaign trail when he was the candidate and after he transitioned or fell on his sword and allowed Kamala Harris to take over. He has said so much about Donald Trump, that Donald Trump is a danger to democracy, a threat to the nation, a threat to the world. And yet now, because he appreciates the formal transition of power, the workings of democracy, he is welcoming that man, that danger as he sees him, of democracy into the White House for the beginning of the transitional process.
And Mark, what is this transitional process today? How much of this will be in front of the cameras? How much of it will be behind closed doors?
We think that, going on what happened in 2016, Obama and Trump were together for about 90 minutes, of which there was a short clip of the two of them in the Oval Office. That was the only public moment that we saw. I imagine today will be much the same. This is the formality, I think. The actual process of transition from one administration to another takes place over several months. It is behind the scenes. It is the handing over of the reins, effectively, different departments handing from one administration to the other. That takes time. This is the formal public moment, the ceremony, I guess you could call it. But awkward indeed this time, more awkward perhaps than any other before. I was looking back at different transitions over history, and when governments have transitioned from one to the other, even if the presidents, outgoing and incoming, are wholly different in their politics, there is a formality, there is a respect that takes place between the two of them. I guess the question which we will find the answer to in the minutes ahead is what that respect looks like, how awkward it is this time around. I mean, given the baggage, given the animosity, given the division within the administration and the outgoing one and the incoming one, I imagine it will be a difficult moment indeed for Joe Biden, a gleeful moment, I'm sure, for Donald Trump.
And do we know much of who Trump's team will be that he will bring with him, or will it just be the man himself?
Well, I think here it will just be the man himself. I think there was an invitation offered to Melania Trump, the incoming First Lady, that, as I understand it, she has declined. But we know that Elon Musk certainly was at the hotel earlier on Capitol Hill. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, owner of Tesla, SpaceX, Twitter, now X, has been in the inner orbit of the incoming Trump administration. And the suggestions over the course of the past few hours from our colleagues at NBC is that is causing some unease, even within others who are within the inner circle of Donald Trump's administration. Almost unease that Musk appears to be seeing himself as a kind of vice president. He has been down at Mar-a-Lago ever since that win exactly a week ago. He's not going to be here, as we understand it, at the White House, but he was at the celebrations that took place on Capitol Hill over the course of the past hour. What sort of role will he have in the incoming administration? We know that he is to head up a department of government efficiency. So we knew, we've known for many months that he would have a role in the White House ever since he tacked towards Donald Trump, became his supporter, surrogate in chief over the course of the past 4 or 5 months or so. We knew he was going to have a role. The Department of Government Efficiency, interestingly, will sit outside government itself. Now, the reason for that is that Elon Musk, as I said, is in charge of very powerful companies who have massive contracts with the US government. So there is a clear conflict of interest interest there. And to try and differentiate or separate that conflict of interest, this new department, which will look at government efficiency, will sit outside the government itself. But that raises questions. Who will oversee that department? Will Congress have an oversee role in that department, as it does with different other departments of government? If it sits outside government, the suggestion is not. Who will fund that department? And how will the conflicts of interest play out with that? So plenty of questions there. Elon Musk will head that department with Vivek Ramaswamy, one-time political rival to Donald Trump for the Republican nomination, now an ardent supporter for Donald Trump. So that's that role, Elon Musk doing that. Other roles that have been announced over the course of the past few days: Secretary of State likely to go to Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida, centrist in a sense within the Republican orbit. He's a traditional Republican, once a foe of Donald Trump, not so much anymore. He's tacked to the MAGA right of the Republican Party. He will be Secretary of State, it is thought, although not yet confirmed. And then Secretary of Defense, well, that's an interesting one. A Fox News host is to be Secretary of Defense. He is a man who has no experience of running the biggest department, one of the biggest departments, governmental departments in the world. Well, he will be the Secretary of Defense. He was a soldier, a National Guard major, has forthright views about the military. He said on a podcast just last week that he believes that if there was to be a war between China and the United States, then the United States would lose that war, that the American military is constantly preparing for the last war and not the next war, whereas China is continually preparing for the next war, which could be with the United States. So very interesting views there. I think broadly in the foreign policy realm, Donald Trump is hiring people who are China hawks, who are very wary of China, who want to stand up to China. I guess if that phrase is "Make America Great Again," well, then these people are the people who, in a global sense, want to make America the great power once again.
Mark, you were just talking about him a moment ago. We've got footage now of Elon Musk leaving that hotel where President Trump was speaking just a short while ago. He was there alongside many senior Republicans who were there to hear the president-elect. And in the last hour, the president-elect thanked members of the Republican Party who were gathered at the hotel for their support during the election campaign. Let's listen in.
So I just want to thank everybody. You've been incredible. We worked with a lot of you to get you in, and you helped me, and you helped me too. And my numbers were, so they say, the 129 years, the most important election in 129 years. That's pretty good. I said, who is the 129 years? What was that, Doc Ronnie? Who was 129 years ago? I'd never looked, because it started at being 100, and then they upped it to that, but it's a great compliment. We won the majority by 7.1 million. We won, which is great, because Republicans aren't supposed to be winning the majority, Marjorie. You know that, right? And we won that, and we won it every way, all 7 swing states, by a lot.
Well, let's return to Mark, who's down there at the White House. Mark, he left, around now, I think about 10, 15 minutes ago from the hotel. It's not that far to the White House, is it? Do we know what's taken so long?
I can confirm now, Jane, that Donald Trump is in the Oval Office. The meeting got underway 2 minutes ago, and so he came in a different entrance, clearly, not one within sight of us, not one we're able to see. But if we spin round, you can see the Oval Office is just there. There's a Marine on the door of the Oval Office, or the West Wing, I should say. The Oval Office is part of that West Wing complex, and that meeting is now underway. So I imagine shortly we will see images from one heck of an awkward moment.
Well, it's unlike Trump to avoid the cameras. Mark, very good to talk to you. Thanks very much. Slightly anticlimactic as we waited for these images of Mr. Trump re-arriving at the White House. The images from inside the Oval Office, though, will be published shortly, and we will bring them to you live as soon as we get them. Next, the father of Sara Sharif has told jurors that he takes full responsibility for the death of his daughter. The 10-year-old was found dead at her home in Woking in August last year. Irfan Sharif made the admission under cross-examination at the Old Bailey. Sky's Sabah Chowdhury has been following the case.
It was a dramatic admission that we heard from Sara Sharif's father, 42-year-old Irfan Sharif, at the Old Bailey. Under cross-examination, he told a jury he takes full responsibility for the death of his daughter, whose body was found by police at the family home in Woking just last summer. He said, "She died because of me," admitting, "I accept every single thing." Now, this includes inflicting 25 fractures
Biden has apparently told Trump he looks forward to a peaceful transition. Trump, President-elect, says politics is tough, but it is in his world. It's a nice world today, he says. So President Biden and President-elect Trump have met at the Oval Office again. They've shaken hands. I think we can bring you that image now. Oh, there we go. Slightly strange angle. But there they are in front of a roaring fire. It is a pretty cold day, Mark was saying, in Washington today. And there are the pair sitting side by side in front of that roaring fire. President Biden saying that it looks forward to a peaceful transition, and President Trump-to-be says politics is tough, but it's a nice world today. I think we even have moving footage. Let's bring that to you now.
And the former president, thank you. Donald, congratulations. Thank you. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
Good.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough. And it's, in many cases, not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get.
Well, the first meeting since the election between President Biden and Donald Trump. This is a traditional courtesy that the outgoing president welcomes the president-elect into the White House to talk them through a peaceful transition of power. That, of course, won't happen until the end of January. But that is what has just happened in the last few moments. I think we can bring back in our Washington correspondent, Mark Stone. So, Mark, I don't know if you're able to see these pictures, but the pair of them sitting, which I wasn't expecting, actually. I assumed that they would be standing, but they're sitting in front of a roaring fire. We can see it's decorated with wreath above it. I don't know if that's for Christmas or as a leftover from Thanksgiving. Pleasantries exchanged between the pair of them, all smiles, but inside you must imagine that Joe Biden is seething.
Yeah, but I think the word from Biden's perspective is magnanimous. He was civil. I don't think we could have expected anything else outwardly. I think inward, I imagine he is seething. I imagine he is wounded. I imagine he is wondering what might have been different. I think he'll probably believe that had he remained the candidate, he could have beaten Donald Trump. He always said he was the only man who could beat him. He is the only man who has beaten him back in 2020. But look, that image, remarkable as it was, is precisely a mirror of what we saw back in 2016. It was Donald Trump in 2016 sitting on that same seat. Opposite him then was Barack Obama, and we saw the same moment. They spoke for longer back then. Barack Obama talked about how he had told Donald Trump about how transition would work, about the workings of the White House, the workings of Washington. So we heard more from them back then. It was a very short greeting this time. Politics is tough, I think Donald Trump said, but Joe Biden held out his hand. They shook hands, civil to the T, I think was what we saw there. But what happens now? Well, the transition period will get underway behind the scenes. Different departments, different officials from the outgoing administration, the incoming administration will get together and they will hand over the reins of power from one politics which looks very different from the politics that will be to come.
Mark, thanks very much. We'll have much more on this and all the rest of the day's news. We're going to take a short break.
Paris reverberated to the sights, sounds and smells of conflict.
There's a focal point to all this anger, and that is Emmanuel Macron.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels.
There are dozens of people desperately clambering to get onto that boat. It is a chaotic scene, but it's being watched by dozens of French police officers on the beach.
I've reported on migration across Europe, close up on the ground, understanding that sense of desperation and meeting the criminal gangs behind it.
This old fishing boat set off from the Libyan port of Tobruk. There were 606 people who were on board.
So we've been distributing life jackets to all the people on board this boat, and now the first person is coming on board.
This is the ugly side of Italian football.
In Italy, everything is really organized.
football's problems with hooliganism, racism were just dormant, and now they're back and they're getting worse. We cover so many countries, languages and cultures and work hard to gain trust to bring you the full story first.
Help is slowly reaching these places.
It's not just homes, but whole streets like this one that have been reduced to rubble and dust.
This is a picture of destruction.
Everywhere you look in this mountaintop community, there is absolute devastation.
These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again. Getting the chance to tell people's stories, it's a privilege.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Play Sky News.
Why have we crashed out? Well, that is the live shot from outside the White House where President Biden has met President-elect Trump, who has come up to Washington from Florida, from his Mar-a-Lago home, to spend a bit of time in the White House as the start of this orderly transition of power from one administration to the other. Let's just listen in to these images that have just come to us.
President-elect and former President, thank you, Donald, congratulations. Thank you. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
Good.
Welcome
Thank you
back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate very much a transition that's so smooth. It'll be as smooth as it can get.
President-elect.
Well, let's bring in our US correspondent, Mark Stone, who is standing by outside, and both sides, Mark, promising a smooth transition, which will be certainly more than happened the last time.
Yeah, and I thought there was maybe a slightly pointed remark from President Biden when Donald Trump said just now he thanked President Biden for a smooth transition. President Biden's response was, "You're welcome," maybe slightly barbed, given what happened 4 years ago, because there was no smooth transition then. There was no moment like this. President Trump did not believe that he had lost the last election. Indeed, he said it was being stolen. Indeed, at this point, 4 years ago, there were court cases, there were battles all around the country as allegations of fraud spiraled. And so Donald Trump back then did not want to leave the White House. He said that he was the winner, even though he wasn't. And there was no transition period. And so it was a very awkward moment for the incoming presidency, the incoming administration of Joe Biden, because there was no process of transition. Very different this time. And I can tell you, too, that the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, is here as well. Melania Trump, the incoming First Lady, she is not here. She was invited but declined the invitation, as we understand it. The First Lady, she joined President Biden in greeting President-elect Trump on his arrival here about 25 minutes or so ago, and she gave Mr. Trump a handwritten letter from her to Mrs. Trump in which she expressed her team's readiness to assist with the transition. So there are many parallel transitions taking place. The transition of the presidency, the transition of the vice presidency, the transition of the office of the First Lady, and all the different departments of the US government. Transition periods all over. An awful lot of work to do, especially when the two administrations have wholly different visions for what America should look like. But I think the takeaway now, and I guess we should have expected it, was civility on both sides. President Biden, inside, what's he thinking? We may never know, but outwardly certainly magnanimous in the defeat that is of his party, and a handshake for the incoming president. a man, let's not forget, who he has called a danger to democracy, a danger to America, a danger to the world, so many other things as well. Well, today it was all about the peaceful transfer of power.
And Mark, we're also hearing today, we're also getting a flavour of who Trump's top team will be around him.
We are indeed. We knew yesterday that Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida, is set to be Secretary of State, America's top diplomat, effectively the foreign minister for the United States. That hasn't been formally confirmed by President Trump yet. And you know Trump, it may be that he changes his mind, but certainly he is an interesting choice, perhaps not altogether in line over the years with Trump's view of the world. He's an internationalist and an Atlanticist, someone who believes in multilateral relationships, in America's place as perhaps even as the global policeman, not something that Trump has certainly aligned himself to. But he is likely to be a US Secretary of State. We know that Mike Huckabee is due to be the US ambassador to Israel, a very interesting appointment. It will please many in Israel. It will alarm many in the Arab world. Mike Huckabee, a staunch pro-Israel advocate, a man who has said that the West Bank doesn't exist, that settlements don't exist, that if Palestinians would like a home, a state of their own, then perhaps they should look elsewhere. And then there's the Secretary of Defense, the nominee for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who is an interesting character. I've spoken to the former Defense Department official today who raised his eyebrows at that appointment. He's a host on Fox News. He was once a National Guard major. He has forthright views about the military, about the US military. He did a podcast last week where he said that the US military, if it was to face a war with China, would lose. You know, maybe he is saying things publicly, saying things out loud that others fear privately. And maybe that is what Trump 2.0 is all about, facing realities and then they would hope finding solutions for those realities. But uncomfortable for many in the establishment, all those appointments will be.
Mark, really good to talk to you. Thanks very much for joining us there. That's Mark Stone, our Washington correspondent, standing outside the White House as we look at these images from inside the White House of President-elect Donald Trump sitting alongside the current President Joe Biden as they start this process of transitioning power. It will culminate in January when President Trump comes back to the White House proper. But in the short term, as you can see, this pair shaking hands, promising a peaceful transition of power. Donald Trump telling Joe Biden today, politics is tough. One gets the sense that Joe Biden perhaps knows that already. Coming up next, the top business stories live with Darren McCaffrey.
Thank you very much indeed, Jane. It is a Wednesday afternoon, and these are the top business stories live from the Sky Newsroom. Bitcoin hits $90,000 on the back of Donald Trump's election win. Is this a new dawn for crypto? P&O accounts reveal that the controversial sacking of hundreds of seafarers cost the company millions of pounds, but did manage to keep it afloat. And 50 years of the Big Mac as McDonald's celebrates half a century here in the UK. Very good afternoon and welcome to Business Live with me, Darren McCaffrey. Well, before Donald Trump was re-elected, there was a general feeling that his administration would be crypto-friendly. Well, he is in the White House right now, visiting President Biden. He hasn't quite moved in, but that hasn't stopped Bitcoin riding a wave that's seen it hit record highs, reaching $90,000 for the first time this afternoon. Well, as you can see, Bitcoin has surged on the back. Look at that vertical line of the US election last Wednesday. So is this the dawn of a new era for cryptocurrency? Let's speak to Paul Gruel. He's Chief Legal Officer at Coinbase, the crypto trading platform, and joins me now live down the line. Very good afternoon to you, Paul.
Good afternoon.
And it's not just Bitcoin that's seeing these massive jumps, your company and others too.
No question about it. We've seen markets return and return strong in the aftermath of our presidential election last week. It's a reflection of the fact that the voice and vote of crypto advocates and owners here in the United States was heard loud and clear. That's reflected in the election, of course, of former President Trump and his return to office. It also is reflected in the election of the most pro-crypto Congress we've had in the United States in history. And so while obviously the individual candidates were the winners most directly last Tuesday, crypto was, in fact, the biggest winner of all in many respects.
So when you say pro-crypto, what does that actually mean? I mean, what are we talking about here? They just like it, they're invested in it, or they're going to make crypto easier to exchange?